Hello peoples, today I'm going to be doing a review for Thunderbolts. I know this isn't my typical way of doing reviews, you usually get to see my face, but this time I am not showing my face because my room's a mess and I want to get this review out of the way. Every single time there's a new Marvel movie, the headline is this the return to form that Marvel needed? And I wanted to say that, like, people think it's like once Endgame happened, the downfall happened, but I'm going to start this video by saying I don't think things started to sour with Marvel with Endgame. I'm gonna say it's Ant-Man and the Wasp when things started to look pretty concerning. When you look at the MCU, things were pretty steady from like 2016 to about Infinity War. So for 2 years straight, like Marvel was having hit after hit after hit, and that was truly like its peak. Like when you look at 2016, you have Captain America: Civil War, fantastic. Doctor Strange, which was still pretty solid. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I know there's some people who don't love it, but I still love that movie. Spider-Man: Homecoming, a fantastic first outing for Spider-Man in the MCU. Thor Ragnarok, one of the most fun movies up until that point. Black Panther, one of the most impactful movies up until that point. Avengers: Infinity War, the most hyped up movie up until that point. And then you get to Ant-Man and the Wasp. And yes, this is just going to continue. I'm starting my Thunderbolts review just by hating on Peyton Reed. That's where you start to see things get a little shaky. And then you get to Captain Marvel. And then that was a little shaky too. And as much as I like moments in Endgame, that movie has really messy visuals. It has a third act problem, if you ask me. Even though if it hits its character beats perfectly, I still have a lot of issues with Endgame. Far From Home wasn't a Spider-Man movie. You got Black Widow, which had one of the messiest third acts in the entire MCU. Shang-Chi, I know some people love that movie, but I still think that third act was almost just as messy as Black Widow. I actually liked Eternals, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it was a huge success. No Way Home was a lot of fun, and that was definitely an outsider, even if it did have its fair share of issues. Multiverse of Madness was controversial. Love and Thunder was awful. Wakanda Forever was, I thought, a pretty good movie, but there's definitely people who are split on whether they should recast Boseman or not. Quantum Mania was rock bottom, and then it's weird because we had the best Marvel movie of all time, and I still stand by this: Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is my favorite MCU film till this day, and I think it's just a fantastic movie in general. Then we get to the Marvels, which is just, we from here we're going from we're so done to we're so back to we're so done again. Deadpool and Wolverine, which I thought was very overhyped, but had a lot of fun. Then we had Captain America: Brave New World, which was just more bottom of the barrel stuff for me. And now we have Thunderbolt. Now, is this a return to form for like how it felt watching Marvel from like 2016 to 2018? And like I'm trying to see, like, if this movie came out in the midst of those, how would I feel about this movie? And a lot of people have been saying this, and I'm actually am backing this. If this movie came out in that time, it would have felt different. I would say we haven't seen a Marvel movie like this before. Yes, it has its Marvel DNA in it, and it has the humor, it has the set pieces, but thematically and emotionally, this is something that the MCU hasn't necessarily done very well, except for in the Guardians films. This movie actually cares about its characters and what their arcs are, and particularly Red Guardian and Yelena, which are definitely the standouts in this film. I do have to say, I wish Bucky got a little bit more limelight. It felt like everyone loves Bucky, but he hasn't really had like a great moment outside of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like some of the stuff that he did in those final few episodes, like, were really fantastic for the character, but it doesn't really feel like he's as super well explored in the films. And obviously, not everybody has Disney Plus, and so I would really like to see a good on-screen representation of Bucky. And he was obviously in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but that's when he was, that was just the very beginning of his arc. I would like to get a little bit more established of him because he's in this movie for sure. He's definitely one of the more prominent characters, but he's definitely not the main character. But I'm not going to complain about having Yelena as our main character because she is definitely one of the best inclusions that we've had in post Endgame phase, because like she is incredibly likable, incredibly relatable, and just most of all human. She doesn't have superpowers. She's not a superhuman, and the movie constantly remembers that. It remembers really well what characters have what powers, because my big issue with Black Widow is the third act is just absolutely ridiculous. You have Black Widow jumping from the sky and drifting from debris to debris, and then jumping onto Taskmaster, pulling her parachute. Like, come on, that's not something that you would see Black Widow doing. She doesn't have, she's Red Room trained, but she's not a superhero. I mean, she is a superhero, but she's not like a superpowered individual. And this movie remembers that about the characters. It remembers that, John Walker has the super soldier serum. It remembers that Bucky has that too. It remembers that, and Red Guardian does. It remembers what characters have each power set, and it doesn't feel like we just have a bunch of humans just punching people across the room like Black Widow kind of ran into that territory. Another thing that this movie really pulled off is, remember how I said Ant-Man and the Wasp was the first sign of trouble for the MCU for me? I really liked Ghost in this movie. I really liked her character. I thought she was perfectly snarky, and I thought the way that they utilized the ghost power here was actually really fun. And I wish they didn't show this shot in the trailer, but one of my favorite shots of the movie is when this helicopter's crashing and she just like teleports in, pushes somebody out of the way, and teleports out. And that's one of my favorite elements about this film. There's a whole montage, not montage, but this whole sequence in the third act of this movie where these people are being what feels like a superhero, stuff you see in the comics, saving the little girl, saving the citizens on the side of the road, and that's their first priority. And it's not to punch the main villain in the face a billion times. It's to save the people that they're trying to protect, to feel like actual heroes. Team dynamic that this builds isn't. I know a lot of people are saying it's just as strong as any other team. I think like the Guardians team had a little bit more of a better team dynamic, but I would say definitely this is just as strong and if not stronger than like the connection that the Avengers had. And I honestly wish that this movie was longer because my biggest issue with this movie is the first act. I thought it started very sloppy. I thought it was kind of all over the place and having a rough time connecting all these characters to make this story work that they want it to work. But once we get through that, the story really flies and it becomes a lot of fun. Honestly, once the first act is over, I really don't have a lot of issues with this movie. And it's weird because I see some reviews say that the third act is the worst part. But the third act in this movie is one of my favorite parts of it. Like I love what they did with the final sequence because this movie is about depression, it's about loneliness. And what I love about this movie even more is that it's trying to be about something. It's not just, a plot movie where like what's the message out of it, because like can somebody tell me what the message is to Captain America Brave New World? I don't think anybody knows. I don't think the filmmakers even know. Like we know the plot of the movie, and yes, like Thunderbolts has a plot, but it's actually about something. There's something to get out of this film. There's something to connect with emotionally. There's something you can latch onto and feel these characters, and it makes everything hit harder because of it. But my biggest issue with this movie, besides the third act, is unfortunately Valentina. I really liked her introduction in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but my god, this has become a slippery slope, and I can't stand her character, not even as a villain. And it's how she's written. Every single one of her lines was so expository, so like, we can't do this because this is going to happen, then this will happen, and then if we don't do this, this will happen, because so this is why we have to do this, and they'll cut to the next scene. That's every single one of her scenes. The movie only gives her one scene to really try to give her a little bit more depth. It's just one scene, and it's kind of like, how in Avengers Age of Ultron where Scarlet Witch is like messing with everybody's mind, and we get to see parts of their past. It's kind of just like if that was the most we got out of this character so far. While I see what they were trying to do, it can't help me feel like maybe there was a longer cut in this movie. Was Marvel Studios too scared to put out a movie that had a third act this way and have it be on the longer side? Because this isn't the most action-packed Marvel movie. I mean, it still has a good amount of action, but it's not the most action in the MCU. I can't believe I see some reviews for this calling it boring, because I'm so serious. If they told me they had another hour of footage, I would tell them to 100% put it in, even if there wasn't any action, just because I think there was a lot more development needed for these emotional beats to hit, particularly with the themes that they were going for this film. While it did hit the way that it needed to work, I think it could have gone so much deeper and hit so much harder and truly be like the best Marvel movie, period. The VFX looks solid throughout. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there are moments where you can tell it's still not like 2017, 2016. Well, not even 2016, more like 2015 good. It's definitely a lot better than some of the stuff we got in the last few films. I would say this is the best looking Marvel movie since probably Wakanda Forever, Eternals, and that says a lot, because and honestly, I'm maybe say that the VFX in here is probably maybe even a little bit better than those. But it was just nice to watch a Marvel movie where I wasn't like being taken out of it all the time. And speaking of being taken out of it, the humor in here isn't undercutting anything. There is a lot of humor in this movie. You have Red Guardian, who is really hilarious and fantastically portrayed by David Harbour, but he does not. It's not undercut by anything. He doesn't. Like, in fact, Red Guardian and Yelena share my favorite scene of the entire movie. It's this really amazing heart-to-heart that they have, and it doesn't end with Red Guardian joking about his limo or something about, competing with Captain America. It is a genuine, heartfelt moment that happens, it sits, and the next thing happens in the plot, and it's not undercutting anything, and it's one of the standout moments of the movie. And I'm so happy that they didn't get afraid of getting too deep with this one. I mean, you can tell that, yes, it's a little watered down, and I would describe the third act of this very much Everything Everywhere All at Once with an Inception-like twist. Of course, when I say that, that sounds like the best thing ever, but keep in mind that it's also a Marvel movie, so it's incredibly watered down. But I love the idea of it, and I love the idea that, a bunch of kids are going to go see this movie and get this product of those ideas, even if it is severely watered down. But if this is at the end of the day a kid's movie, that completely makes sense. Well, this movie isn't the best MCU film. It got a lot right and has its own issues that doesn't feel like it's necessarily like Marvel issues. It just feels like issues that this film has, and that's a villain issue with Valentina and the first act being pretty sloppy. Besides that, I don't have a lot of complaints. I love what this movie did thematically. I love the way that it set up the future. In fact, the post-credit scene. I'm not going to talk about the post-credit scene like specifically, but I'll just say this. I don't know who directed the scene because I know Jake Scheifer, I believe is how you say, who directed this film. He did not direct the post-credit scene. He said he was there, but he didn't specify who directed it. Well, all I have to say is, who in the world shot that post-credit scene? Because the cinematography there was actually really solid, and I heard there's rumors that Greg Fraser is getting involved with some future projects. If it's actually Greg Fraser shooting what I'm thinking he might shoot, I am so excited. I really like the Thunderbolts, and I'm gonna give it an 8.2 out of 10. Comment down below what you guys thought of Thunderbolts. Tell me if you loved it. Did you hate it? Do you think this is Marvel returning to form? The whole thing is Marvel returning to form is like such a weird thing to like compare for me, because it's like, to me, only Marvel was like in perfect form from like, for a 2-year span. People kind of have like weird definition of what that return to form looks like. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best thing ever, but I'll just say I'm very happy, and I hope that they continue to go down this direction of making sure we have polished and clean visuals, and making sure that these moments hit, and making these movies about something and not afraid to like maybe even scare the kids a little bit. Comment down below what you guys thought. Like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.